Hello, I'm Nettie Thomas, and I'm the guest host for Meet the Artist. Tonight we are going to talk about the upcoming show that will be at 1978 Maplewood Arts Center, and that's at 1978 Springfield Avenue in Maplewood. The show is A Different Perspective, and the curator is Onnie Strothers. Onnie, would you introduce the artists that you have selected for this exhibit?
The artists that will be exhibiting in the show that will run from March 30th to April 28th will be Peter Arakawa, Vivian McDuffie, and Larry McKim.
Very good. Now, this show is A Different Perspective, and I understand that the focus you feel is different from other shows that we have had at 1978 Maplewood Arts Center.
Mm-hmm.
I know that it's featuring abstraction. How did you come up with your title, and what were you looking for when you selected the artists and the works?
All three of the artists have a kind of poetic vision that I was very much attracted to as I looked through various artists' work to try to figure out who would look best with who and what would be most representative of the kinds of abstract painting that's being done today. And I was already very familiar with Larry McKim's work, having attended a number of his shows. And he suggested that I look at a number of other artists. Peter was one of them, and when I looked at his work, I was very impressed. It was very fresh and different from anything that I'd seen. And Vivian McDuffie is an artist who's had a very long track record in showing in Newark and across the tri-state area. And it was suggested by you
Yes.
that I look at Vivian's work as one of the deans of Newark art. Not to say that her work is dated in any kind of way, but that she was one of the few abstractionists that we had in our circle of friends.
And that is true. Well, all of the artists have collections in very prestigious institutions, and among these are the Newark Museum, the New Jersey State Museum, the James L. Lewis Museum of Art in Baltimore, and the Montclair Museum of Art. I would like the artists now to tell me a little bit about your background, how you got started. I know that, Larry, you were involved with teaching, as I was. And suppose we start with you.
Oh, thanks. Where to start? I, very young, started painting and felt comfortable working in that vein as a painter, drawing, experimenting with that. And I think that when you do that, you start getting reinforcement, and I think that kind of was a self-direction that just kept going through college. I have a degree in painting and a master's degree. I decided to get it in photo media. And in retrospect now, I look back and I think that it was an interesting departure because when you're looking through a camera, the way I was in many ways recapturing compositions that I'd been trying to achieve as a painter. Mm-hmm. And so when I came full circle and went back to painting, I think that the photography changed what I'd been doing from really completely non-objective art to abstraction that does have some sort of more direct reference to the world around me in ways that are not obvious at all, but it's sort of implicit.
Now, how did that evolve into your teaching career?
Need for money.
Yes,
and,
I think that's the standard answer.
Yeah, I think so. But It was very comfortable. My father was a teacher. I grew up in a sort of a culture of educators, and I started teaching as soon as I was out of undergraduate school. When I came to graduate school at Rutgers, I came there and I started teaching right away, photography and art history, and I was there for several years, and then came to Columbia High School and a variety of other colleges. It's been something which has been very rewarding. Students, even 16, 17-year-old students, can be very inspirational and energizing. So it's a two-way give and take, and it's been a really good career. I've loved it.
And I agree, and you're still involved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Vivian, I know for a while, maybe not too long, you were at Arts High School
Yes.
as an art teacher.
Yes, I was.
Tell me a little bit about your career, getting into the arts and into teaching.
Well, when I always drew, and got attention for my skills. So, but I also loved math. So when I finished high school, I decided to major in engineering because all the boys in the class, I had better grades than they did, and they were all going to engineering. The thing of it was, I didn't know what that entailed, and when they asked me to design a drill press, I didn't know what a drill press was, and I decided to just drop out of school. And when I went back, I said, what else did you love besides the math? And it was art. So that's, I got a late start, but I started, and finished from Rutgers in Newark, because by then I'd had a family and a child in tow, and that was an easy way to go. So that's what I did. And I did teach at Arts High when I finally started to look for work. I taught at Arts High for about 5-6 years and took a leave of absence to do a body of work, and I never went back.
I see.
So I've been struggling ever since then to earn a living otherwise, because teaching is a wonderful way to make a living. And presently I am still employed elsewhere working, even at my age. I don't know if I should tell that, but I've been a senior citizen for some time now. And I sell wallpaper and do interior design work on as a means of income, because art is not a thing you can depend on a regular basis for sales. So as we all know, so that's where I am now.
And all of that time, you still had time to exhibit?
Yeah, I've always painted and shown everywhere. By the way, I've had a one-person show in Cuba. It's Santiago
that's
de Cuba.
fantastic.
In Santiago, de Cuba. So it was, it's been quite an adventure. Thanks to a friend by the name of Ben Jones.
Yes.
I took a trip with him in '84, I think it was, 1984, and I've been back few times since then because they're great supporters of the art there.
Yes.
And people come from all over the world. It's phenomenal what they do. I'm talking about Cuba now myself. But I saw Yoko Ono's sister had beautiful work there, so the people are attracted from all over the world there.
That is exciting. And Peter, what about your background and what do you...
Let's see, I grew up in New Jersey. I had a fairly good education. I actually went to high school out in California, where I got a wonderful education. And after graduating high school, my thoughts were to study biology. I fell in love with biology. And I went out to, I came back to the East Coast. I love the East Coast. And I ended up at Hampshire College studying botany for one, and a number of other subjects, but took a painting course and a color course with two professors there that sort of changed my whole outlook on what my career should be. And so the painter that I came across at Hampshire was Jackson Pollock. And for some odd reason, it's because of his spontaneity,
Yes.
because of I think there's an Asian quality to his work, because there are many factors that I was drawn to his work, and I said that's what I want to do. And so I spent. I traveled to California. I studied calligraphy at CCAC, and I took history courses, and I've always been a professional student. That was one thing that with my studies. And so I've always brought that with me, is that I've always tried to better my mind with things that I've been interested in. And the things that I took with me from my education were things like poetry, music, the liberal arts, and the humanities. And so it's been sort of this long journey of a kind of for somewhat selfish reasons, because it's sort of like I am educating myself, but I had a point. There was a point in my life where I was teaching. I had a nervous breakdown at one point in my career, and that's where I've been sort of hindered by that aspect of my life. At the same time, art has been very important in keeping me stable. You know, it keeps me out of trouble. And so I'm constantly learning, and I'm constantly unraveling what the world has to offer me.
Well, I think as teachers, we can all relate to art teaching, keeping students out of trouble. I would like you to just kind of give me a brief idea of what you consider abstraction.
Well,
Brief.
I don't know whether I can do that. Wassily Kandinsky summarized his treatise on painting with the ending that to be an abstractionist, above all, you have to be a poet. And looking at these three artists' work, I really felt that to be something that was true. And so the artist's handling of each one of their mediums, and so that kind of summarizes my feelings about it as well. And again, each artist approaches the discipline in a very different kind of way. I think that few people understand abstract art. I'm not gonna, I would not be so presumptuous as to say that I'm one of the ones who really understand it very well. But I do understand some of the sort of basic ideas, how abstract art would relate to things like poetry, and how non-abstract or non-representational art is very, very exciting because it lends itself to illusions of other things. And in that way is very direct as to what it is that the artist is trying to do.
This is Meet the Artists, and we're interviewing artists who are going to be at 1978 Maplewood Arts Center with their show, A Different Perspective.
Once you're hit by a train, this is the size of bag that we'll use to collect what's left of you on the tracks.
It was a horrible tragedy that could have been averted if we had just stayed off the tracks.
I don't want to have to be the one that has to go tell your parents that you're dead.
Make the right choice. Stay off the tracks.
This is Meet the Artist, and I am the host, Nettie Thomas, and I'm here to meet the artists who are going to be at the 1978 Maplewood Art Center for their exhibit, A Different Perspective. The artists are now going to tell you a little bit about their work, their media, and how they approach creating these pieces. Mr. McKim, Larry, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I'm an abstract painter, and the process that I've used over the years, which has been a long time, has evolved quite a bit. I would say that in the beginning, ideas would emerge directly off the canvas, working immediately, with paint and evolving imagery. And as time went by, and there was a major revolution in, of course, the digital mode of representation, I have to say that I've made maximum use of the computer in terms of initial compositions. I find that it is very spontaneous and impulsive and fluid. Once I was able to gain a certain amount of competence with Photoshop, it became my sketchbook. And so when I am beginning ideas, I begin there. And I'll maybe make 100 compositions in a couple of weeks, and then draw from them as departure points, and I don't copy them, but I use them as departure points. And right now, the directions that they go primarily are paintings on canvas. I use acrylic paint, and they're rather large. They're 4 feet, which is about as big as I feel I can handle physically while maintaining a rather personal relationship with it, as opposed to a major, more physical, minimalist kind of a structure. This feels more personal. But 4 feet feels about right. And so I work on that scale. The other way that I work is with woodblock printing. And I like that because it's a different process. I like the physicality of it. It's hard work. I use a process called subtraction printing, where you layer color over color over color. The texture of layered colors is different than painting and can be surprising. And although prints are supposed to be multiples and the same from print to print, I tend to make them a little different from piece to piece. So I'll make an edition of 15, but they may all be a little different. And I enjoy that evolution of the piece. And then finally, I have a rather obsessive process or project that I started several years ago, where I do collages. They're very small. They're 5 inches square. I have hundreds of these piled around my studio. And they are also abstract. They take bits and pieces of woodblock prints and drawings and paintings that otherwise would end up, in a debris pile somewhere.
So we will see some of those in the exhibit.
Yeah, I'll bring some of those in, and
Very
some
good.
examples of all 3 of those different kinds of art making will be there.
Good. And Vivian, what is your inspiration? What media do you use?
I tend to love oil over the other things. I'm a painter primarily anyway. And I love oil because I just like that smell and the tactile thing you get from brushing it on the canvas. And I tend to use broad strokes to initiate a painting. And I like to work big. And the other thing I like about oil is very forgiving. You can change your mind and push the thing in a different direction. And when I'm painting abstractly, which is not all the time, when I want to make a political statement or a personal statement, I tend to do more representational painting, more figurative. And I find, because I want my message to be immediate, I don't want to have somebody go through layers to guess what that is. And it's called flipping, you know, so then there are times when I just want to do something that comes from here, kind of visceral and cathartic at the same time, you know, so, and that's when I do the abstract. But my abstract tends to look like something that's in nature, or, you know, I thought I was painting totally abstractly when I had a Jehovah's Witness woman come to visit me, and she said, I don't like abstract art. She was just talking to me about art, and I said, but my work is abstract. She said, no, it isn't. That's the Georgia pines over there.
Oh.
And I said, what about this? She says, that's the creation. She saw it all in her own experience, and then I began to realize that people will identify things according to what they see. So my work does look organic. It's very organic. And the most recent ones, I've started to introduce a harder element in with the organic to give it kind of something to play off of, you know, sort of a foil for the other. And I'm starting to like that too. So I continue to experiment, you know, and I tend to still like to work big. I don't know what that is. It takes up a lot of paint, especially when you keep changing your mind about everything. It's, you know, but I'm having lots of fun, and at the same time it's a struggle, you know, to really make something that's a real statement. And to know when to stop.
Sounds very
That's
exciting.
the other thing. You start pushing things, and then you can push it too far, and then you have to pull back, you know. So, yeah, it's wonderful.
It sounds very exciting.
And painful.
And we're looking forward to seeing it. And your work, Peter?
Let's see. I work small. I tend to work small. One reason would be practical.
Yes.
We have an apartment. I share an apartment with another painter, and she and I have to conserve room. So out of practicality, my work tends to be smaller in scale. It's also as a kid, I up until very recently, I made plastic model kits and got very good at it. And so there was working with miniatures has always been something that I've been gravitated towards. I also studied with a man at Rutgers as a graduate student who taught ceramics, Kak Wang Hui, and working with Hui gave me an opportunity to work with glazes and more traditional materials. So I've always been a traditionalist. Unlike Larry, I haven't really gotten close to the computer. And so I tend to work, I like hands-on, I like to feel the material, I like to have the control of the material.
And what media?
Watercolor and gouache, collage. My father was an architect, so, and his father was an architect, so there's a lot of sort of visualizing in our family, a kind of visual dictionary that we have that I've inherited over the years, and it's sort of when I make art, it's using the vocabulary that I discover in nature, that I discover in looking at other paintings, that I discover in my own imagination.
This sounds like it's going to be a very exciting exhibit. And I know that along with the exhibit, we are going to have some other activities. Mr. Strother, will you tell us about what you have planned?
Well, usually when we, with every show that we do at 1978, we have a educational component. That's part of our mission at 1978 too. It is a community gallery, and we do several shows a year that are directly related to students. We do an advanced placement art exhibit, and we, at the end of the year, we do the Columbia High School Film Festival. And so our focus has always been, at least in part, in education. And Columbia High School has a very powerful art department with many courses, 5 art teachers, and many courses in various art disciplines. 2 of the advanced courses are Advanced Placement Art History and Advanced Placement Studio Art. And it is the plan to work with some of the students from Advanced Placement and some of the, maybe some of the other classes in workshops related to understanding and making abstract art.
Well, we certainly look forward to having the students visit us, and I know they're going to be excited to see the work and also to meet the artists. And we will have an opening reception March 30th and a closing reception April 28th. And we look forward to seeing everybody there to meet the artists.